John Miller wiped the grease from his hands and looked up at the old TV mounted in the corner of his repair shop. The news was on again. More talk about the aliens. It had been 3 weeks since their ships appeared in Earth's orbit, and life hadn't been the same since. "Hey, turn that up," John called to his assistant, who grabbed the remote and raised the volume. "The Xanthari representatives have extended an official invitation for Earth to join what they call the Galactic Council," the reporter said. The camera showed tall, shimmering beings with skin that looked like polished crystal. "World leaders are meeting tomorrow to form a united response." John shook his head and returned to the engine he was fixing. He was just a mechanic from Ohio. Aliens and space politics seemed a world away from oil changes and brake repairs. But they weren't. 2 months later, John stood in his backyard, beer in hand, watching the night sky. Somewhere up there, Earth's new diplomatic team was traveling to the Xanthari homeworld. Among them was Susan Bell, a woman from Oregon who taught at the state university. John had seen her on TV. She had a calm way of speaking that made even the strange alien words sound normal. "What do you think about all this alien business?" asked Dan, John's neighbor. "Don't know what to think," John replied. "They seem friendly enough, offering us new technology, medicine, trade deals." "Yeah, but what do they want from us?" Dan asked. John took a sip of his beer. "Guess we'll find out." Across the country in Wyoming, Alan Porter locked the gate to his cattle pen and looked up at the same stars. The former Marine had left military life behind years ago for the quiet of ranch work. Now the skies that had always seemed empty were suddenly full of visitors. Alan's phone buzzed. It was a message from his old captain. "What do you make of these visitors?" Alan typed back, "Not sure yet. Keeping my eyes open." He wasn't against the aliens. He just knew from experience that nothing came free. In Washington, D.C., cameras flashed as President Garcia signed the first official agreement with the Xanthari. The alien ambassador, Cel Turan, towered over the human officials. His crystalline skin caught the light and sent rainbow reflections across the room. "This marks a new chapter for humanity," Cel Turan said in his musical voice. "Your species has great potential. We see many roles for humans in our galactic community." Susan Bell stood nearby, carefully listening to the ambassador's choice of words. As a linguistics professor, she had been picked for her ability to understand not just what was said, but what was meant. "What kind of roles do you see for us?" she asked. Cel Turan's mouth shaped what humans were learning to recognize as a smile. "Your people are remarkably adaptable. You would excel in service positions, resource management, perhaps even security forces for less developed worlds." 6 months passed. Humanity formed the United Earth Alliance to speak with one voice to the galactic community. Human representatives were invited to visit the Galactic Council headquarters, a massive space station orbiting a star near what humans called Alpha Centauri. Susan Bell was among the first to go. The alien station was overwhelming, filled with species of all shapes and forms. Some looked almost human. Others were so different that Susan could barely tell which part was their face. "The humans have arrived," announced a tall, insect-like being to a group of aliens. They turned to look at Susan and her team with what seemed like curiosity. "So small and simple," one whispered loudly. "But they learn quickly," another replied. Susan smiled politely, pretending not to hear. Back on Earth, John Miller continued fixing cars. Alan Porter tended his ranch. Normal lives continued. People got married, had children, argued about politics. But change was coming. Xanthari ships became a common sight in Earth's skies. Alien technology began to appear in stores. Human scientists worked with alien mentors to improve medicine and energy production. Humanity was just people, going about their lives, unaware that across the stars, other species were watching, measuring, and making plans. 5 years passed since the aliens first came to Earth. The excitement of first contact had faded into everyday reality. Lisa Wright sat in her office in the United Earth Alliance building, looking through trade agreements between Earth and various alien corporations. Lisa had once been a contract lawyer in Seattle. Now she worked for all of humanity. The numbers on her screen didn't look good. Earth was sending out 10 times more resources than it was getting back in trade. "Something wrong?" asked a voice from her doorway. Lisa looked up to see Krelvar, a Fraxian diplomat. Fraxians were short, blue-skinned beings with 4 arms. Unlike the elegant Syntheri, they spoke plainly and seemed to genuinely like humans. "These trade deals," Lisa said, "I'm trying to find a way to make them more fair for Earth." Krelvar closed the door and spoke quietly. "You won't. The Council doesn't see humans as equals." "What do you mean?" Lisa asked. "The Syntheri and other high-tier species see humans as useful tools, not partners." Krelvar's 4 hands made a nervous pattern. "I shouldn't say more." In space, far from Earth, Frank Daniels stood on the bridge of the UEA spacecraft Steadfast Asterisk. A former Navy officer, Frank now commanded one of Earth's first true spaceships, built with alien technology. "Captain, we're approaching Proxima Centauri II," his pilot said. Frank nodded. "Take us into orbit." Their mission was to check on the human colony there. The settlement of New Denver had stopped sending regular reports 3 weeks ago. "Scan for human life signs," Frank ordered. The science officer looked confused. "Captain, the colony is gone. The settlement buildings are there, but no humans." Frank's face hardened. "Land us near the main building." Hours later, Frank stood in what had been the colony's meeting hall. The place was empty, as if everyone had simply walked away. But in the administrator's office, he found a hidden data chip. The recording showed the colony leader, a woman named Kate Parsons. "They came in the night." Kate's recorded message said, "Syntheri ships. They said there was a dangerous radiation leak, and everyone needed to evacuate. But once we were on their ships, we realized something was wrong. I managed to slip away long enough to leave this message. The Syntheri want our planet for mining." The treaties meant nothing. Frank clenched his fists. This wasn't the first strange disappearance of human settlers, but it was the first with proof of what was happening. Back on Earth, Alan Porter welcomed a group of visitors to his Wyoming ranch. They were mostly former military, people who, like him, had questions about humanity's new place in the galaxy. "My cousin works at the UAA," said a woman named Diane. "She says we're giving away Earth's resources for almost nothing in return." A man named Pete nodded. "My brother's colony on Mars had their water rights taken away. The Syntheri claimed they needed it for their own settlement." Alan listened quietly. He had been gathering these stories for months now. "What about our government? Are they doing anything?" "They believe what the Syntheri tell them," Diane said. "That we're still new to the galactic community. That we need to pay our dues." At the United Earth Alliance headquarters, Susan Bell was now a senior diplomat. She had spent years learning alien languages and customs. Today, she had a private meeting with Xel Turin, the Syntheri ambassador. "Ambassador, I've heard concerning reports from some of our colonies," Susan said carefully. Xel Turin's crystal features reflected the light. "Growth requires change, Dr. Bell. Some human settlements needed to be relocated for their own safety." "Without consulting Earth first?" Susan asked. The ambassador's smile didn't reach his eyes. "The Council must sometimes act quickly. Rest assured, all humans are being treated fairly." As Susan left the meeting, her comm unit buzzed. It was a message from Lisa Wright. "Need to talk. Found something in the trade agreements. Don't trust the Syntheri." Susan looked back at the ambassador's closed door. For the first time in 5 years, she felt afraid. The emergency alarms woke Susan Bell at 3 in the morning. Red lights flashed across her apartment as the voice of the United Earth Alliance president came through all communication channels. "People of Earth, I must report a grave development. The Rigelian species has attacked several Galactic Council worlds. Our Syntheri allies have requested our military support. As loyal members of the galactic community, we will answer this call. Susan's comm unit buzzed with an urgent message. All senior diplomats were called to an emergency meeting. Across the country, John Miller watched the same broadcast. His repair shop now fixed both Earth vehicles and some of the simpler alien crafts. The news didn't surprise him. He had felt something coming for months now. His phone rang. It was Alan Porter from Wyoming. "You seeing this?" Alan asked. "Yeah," John replied. "You think it's real?" Alan was quiet for a moment. "Don't know. But I'm calling everyone I trust. Something feels wrong." In space, Captain Frank Daniels received new orders. The Steadfast would join a fleet of human ships to help defend Zinthar Prime, the homeworld of the Zinthari. "Set course for the Zinthari system," Frank ordered, his face grim. His second in command, a woman named Gloria, looked worried. "Sir, we're being sent to the front lines with minimal information about the enemy." "I know," Frank said quietly. "Stay alert. Something about this doesn't add up." 3 days later, the human fleet arrived at Zinthar Prime. The planet glowed like a blue jewel in space. A fleet of Zinthari ships waited for them. "Captain, we're receiving transmission from the Zinthari command," Gloria reported. The screen lit up showing Commander Vex Lore, a senior Zinthari military leader. "Captain Daniels, we appreciate Earth's swift response. The Rigelian forces will arrive in this system within hours. We've assigned your fleet to Sector 7. Frank studied the tactical display. "Sector 7 puts us directly in the path of the enemy's approach." "Your ships are sturdy," Commander Vex Lore said, "and humans have shown remarkable courage." When the Rigelian ships appeared, the battle began immediately. The human fleet fired their weapons, which the Zinthari had assured them would be effective against Rigelian shields. They weren't. "Our shots aren't penetrating their defenses," Gloria shouted over the sound of explosions. The Steadfast rocked as it took heavy damage. Half the human fleet was already destroyed. "Sir," called the communications officer, "I've intercepted a transmission between the Zinthari and Rigelian commanders. They're talking like allies, not enemies." Frank rushed to the console. The message was clear. The entire war was a setup. The enemy ships were mercenaries hired to test human military response while eliminating Earth's small fleet. "Send this to Earth now," Frank ordered, but the communication systems were damaged. As the Steadfast took more hits, Frank made a desperate decision. "Prepare for emergency jump. We need to warn Earth." Back on Earth, Susan Bell sat in a meeting with Cell Turan and other Zinthari officials. The mood was tense. "We've received troubling news," Cell Turan said smoothly. "It appears human colonies have been developing weapons in violation of our treaties." "That's not true," Susan replied. "We've followed every." Cell Turan raised his hand. "The Council has voted. For the safety of all species, we must establish a temporary peacekeeping presence on Earth and all human worlds." Susan realized with horror what was happening. "You're planning to invade us." "Not invade," Cell Turan corrected. "Protect. From yourselves." Susan reached for her emergency comm unit under the table. She pressed the distress code to warn Earth's security forces. Too late, she saw the Zinthari guards moving toward her. "I'm sorry you see it that way, Dr. Bell," Cell Turan said as the guards surrounded her. "Humans have such potential, but you need guidance." Susan managed to hit the broadcast button just before they grabbed her. Her voice echoed across Earth's communication channels. "This is Susan Bell. The alien war is fake. Earth is about to be invaded. Prepare to defend." The message cut off. 1 year had passed since the Zinthari ships filled Earth's skies. 1 year since they had come with their peacekeeping forces and taken control. 1 year of living under alien rule. John Miller wiped sweat from his forehead as he worked on the engine of a Zinthari transport vehicle. His repair shop was now a service center for alien technology. 2 Zinthari guards watched him work. Hurry up, human, one said. Commander Zelter needs this transport by evening. John nodded without looking up. The aliens didn't know that while he fixed their vehicles, he was learning how they worked, learning their weaknesses. When the guards turned away, John placed a tiny device inside the engine compartment. It would record all the transport's movements and communications, another piece of information for the resistance. Across the city, Lisa Wright sat in a small cafe. Once a contract negotiator, she now worked as a translator for the Xanthari administration. The aliens thought she was cooperating. They were wrong. A Fraxian server placed a cup on her table. Inside the napkin was a data chip. Lisa slipped it into her pocket without changing expression. The usual today, the Fraxian asked, meaning, is the drop location the same? Yes, thank you, Lisa replied, meaning, yes, the information will be passed on. Not all aliens supported the occupation. Some, like her Fraxian contacts, believed the treatment of humans was wrong. They helped when they could. In Wyoming, Alan Porter's ranch looked abandoned from the outside. The Xanthari rarely patrolled this far from major cities. They didn't know that beneath the old barn was a growing resistance base. Alan studied a map with 20 other people, former soldiers, police officers, and ordinary citizens who had escaped the alien-controlled zones. The supply convoy passes here, Alan said, pointing to a mountain road. We hit it fast, take what we can carry, and disappear back into the hills. What about the escort ships? Asked Diane, now his second in command. Alan smiled slightly. John sent something to help with that. Underground bunkers and hidden rooms across Earth now housed resistance fighters. They communicated using old radio technology the aliens considered primitive and didn't monitor. They trained in secret. They waited. In a detention center in Washington, D.C., Susan Bell sat in her cell. The Xanthari kept her alive because she knew alien languages and cultures. They forced her to make broadcasts telling humans to cooperate with their protectors. But Susan had found ways to include hidden messages in her words, slight changes in phrasing that meant nothing to aliens but signaled the truth to attentive humans. Today, a new guard brought her meal. When he leaned close, she was surprised to hear him whisper, "The steadfast survived. Captain Daniels is rebuilding the fleet." Susan kept her face blank, showing no reaction. But inside, hope flickered for the first time in months. Near Mars, the damaged ship steadfast hid in an abandoned mining station. Captain Frank Daniels looked at what remained of his crew, plus the 100 or so humans they had rescued from captured colonies. The communications array is working, Gloria reported. We're receiving signals from resistance groups on Earth and the lunar colonies. Frank nodded. And the modifications to the engines. Complete, said Rick, the chief engineer. We've integrated the salvaged Rigelian technology. The Xanthari won't be able to track us now. Frank looked at the makeshift star map they had created. We start small. Hit their supply lines. Free detention camps when possible. Gather allies. Some of the other occupied species have reached out, Gloria said. The Fraxians especially want to help. Frank's eyes hardened. The Xanthari thought they knew what humans were. They saw farmers, teachers, mechanics. They didn't see soldiers, survivors, fighters. They're about to learn. Across Earth and throughout the solar system, humanity had changed. People who once lived ordinary lives now became warriors, spies, and rebels. They passed information, sabotaged alien equipment, and prepared for the day they would take back their world. The resistance was growing stronger, and the aliens were beginning to worry. 18 months after the occupation began, the Xanthari commander Vex Lore stood in his office overlooking what used to be called New York City. Reports from across Earth showed the same pattern: increasing attacks on Xanthari outposts, missing supply ships, and communication failures. How are these primitives causing so much trouble? He demanded of his security chief. They are adapting. The security chief replied nervously. They use old technologies we don't monitor. They strike in ways we don't expect. A loud explosion shook the building. Alarms blared. What now? Vexlor shouted. Sir, our main power station is under attack. Across the city, John Miller led a small team through the sewers. Above them, Xanthari forces rushed toward the power station explosion, exactly as planned. The real target was elsewhere. John's team reached their destination, the basement of the Xanthari command center. He pulled out a device he had built from modified alien parts. Plant these on the main support columns, he told his team. They won't detect them until it's too late. The devices weren't bombs. They were something the aliens feared more. Human creativity turned into weapons. Once activated, they would disrupt the Xanthari crystalline communication systems, blinding their operations for crucial hours. In orbit around Earth, a small fleet appeared suddenly from behind the moon. The Steadfast Asterisk led 5 ships that had once been mining vessels, but were now armed with weapons that combined human ingenuity with stolen alien technology. On the bridge, Captain Frank Daniels gave the order. Begin the attack. The ships moved with unusual patterns, confusing Xanthari targeting systems. Where alien ships flew in predictable formations, these human vessels seemed to move randomly. Their defense grid is trying to lock on, Gloria reported. They can't predict our flight patterns. Frank smiled grimly. Launch the pulse weapons. The weapons hit the Xanthari orbital platform. Instead of exploding, they released electromagnetic pulses that the Xanthari shields weren't designed to block. On her prison transport ship, Susan Bell felt the vessel shudder. The lights flickered and died. In the darkness, she heard confusion among the guards. A voice whispered near her, Dr. Bell, I'm with the Resistance. The ship's systems are down. We're getting you out. Susan felt her restraints being cut. How did you know I'd be on this transport? Lisa Wright's intelligence network. She has people everywhere. In Wyoming, Alan Porter's resistance base had grown. What started as a few people hiding in his barn was now a force of hundreds spread across the mountains. Today they were launching their largest operation yet. The Xanthari mining operation is just over this ridge. Alan told his fighters. They're extracting earth metals for their fleet. We're going to shut it down. Diane handed out weapons, some human, some modified alien technology. Remember, hit the processing centers first. Their guards aren't expecting a frontal assault. Why not? Asked a young fighter. Alan smiled. Because they think we're too smart to try it. They expect sneaking and sabotage. Sometimes the unexpected move is the best one. The resistance fighters charged over the ridge, yelling battle cries. The Xanthari guards were so shocked that many dropped their weapons and ran. In Washington, D.C., Lisa Wright slipped through the old subway tunnels beneath the city. She carried vital information downloaded from the Xanthari Central Database. Her Fraxian contact waited in a hidden room. Did you get it? Lisa nodded and handed over the data chip. Complete schematics of their main ships, including weaknesses our weapons can target. The Fraxians' 4 hands worked quickly to copy the data. The Xanthari are confused. They don't understand why their superior technology isn't winning. Lisa smiled. They studied our science, our weapons, our technology. They thought they knew what humans were capable of. But they never studied our history. Your history. Thousands of years of warfare. Countless wars where the weaker side found ways to defeat the stronger. We've been preparing for this moment for our entire history. We just didn't know it. Across Earth and in space, humanity revealed its true nature. Not just people, but survivors, warriors, and the Xanthari were beginning to understand they had made a terrible mistake. 2 years into the War of Liberation, the tide was turning. The Xanthari no longer patrolled Earth's cities with confidence. They moved in large groups, weapons always ready, eyes watching every shadow. John Miller stood in what had once been his repair shop, but was now the main technology center for the Resistance. Around him, People worked on strange hybrid devices that combined Earth materials with modified alien parts. "This is the latest design," John said, showing a small device to Susan Bell. After her rescue, she had become a key leader in the resistance. "We call it a ghost pulse. It makes Xanthari ships think they're being attacked from all directions at once." Susan picked up the device. "And they still can't figure out how we're making these." "No," John smiled. "They understand each piece of technology, but not how we put them together. They think in straight lines. We think around corners." On the outskirts of Chicago, Lisa Wright met with representatives from 3 alien species. These weren't Xanthari, but members of other races that had been kept low in the Galactic Council hierarchy. "The Xanthari communications network has blind spots now," Lisa explained. "We can get messages to resistance cells on 12 formerly Xanthari-controlled worlds." A Fraxian diplomat nodded all 4 of his arms excitedly. "Our people are rising up too. The Xanthari never expected a coordinated rebellion. They still control most of the galaxy," cautioned a tall, plant-like being from a species called the Naven. "But not for long," Lisa replied. "Captain Daniels is preparing the next phase." In space, the resistance fleet had grown. What began as 6 modified ships was now over 30 vessels of various sizes. Some were captured Xanthari craft. Others were human ships rebuilt with new technology. The Steadfast Asterisk remained the flagship, though it now looked very different from the vessel that had escaped the ambush 2 years ago. Frank Daniels studied the tactical display showing their next target. "The Xanthari supply base on Mars is heavily defended," he told his officers. "But if we take it, we cut off resources to all their Earth operations." "Their ships outnumber ours 3 to 1, Gloria pointed out. Frank smiled. "Yes, but they still fly in the same formations, use the same tactics. They haven't adapted. We have." In the mountains of Wyoming, Alan Porter prepared his ground forces for the biggest operation yet. Their target was the main Xanthari landing field in what had once been Colorado. "Once Captain Daniels begins his attack on Mars, they'll send reinforcements from Earth," Alan explained to his fighters. "That's when we hit the landing field. No ships leave Earth to help Mars." Diane checked her weapon, a rifle modified with alien power cells. "The Xanthari commander has requested a meeting." Alan raised his eyebrows. "They want to talk now." "They're scared," Diane said simply. Near the old United Nations building in New York, now a Xanthari command center, Commander Vexlor waited nervously. When Susan Bell arrived with her small escort, he seemed relieved. "Dr. Bell," he said formally, "your resistance activities are impressive but futile. The Council controls thousands of worlds." "Then why ask for this meeting?" Susan asked calmly. Vexlor's crystalline features shifted uncomfortably. "We may have misunderstood humans. Perhaps an arrangement could be reached. Certain autonomy for Earth, in exchange for ending the wider conflict." Susan looked at him steadily. "You still don't understand. We're not fighting just for Earth anymore. We're fighting for all the species you've kept down. And we're winning." The attack on Mars began that night. The resistance fleet moved in patterns no alien targeting system could predict. Smaller, faster ships darted between the larger Xanthari cruisers, firing ghost pulses that sent the alien vessels shooting at empty space. When the Xanthari commander on Mars called Earth for reinforcements, no ships came. Alan Porter's forces had taken the landing field in a surprise dawn attack. Throughout the solar system, the pattern repeated. Humans using unexpected tactics, alien forces confused and outmaneuvered by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. Humanity had stopped being just people. They had become what countless generations of conflict had prepared them to be, the most dangerous warriors the galaxy had ever seen. 3 years after the occupation began, humanity was ready for its boldest move yet. Operation Homecoming would be a coordinated attack to retake Earth completely. Frank Daniels stood on the bridge of the Steadfast Asterisk, which now led a fleet of over 100 ships. Some were human vessels, Others belonged to alien allies who had joined their cause. "All ships report ready, Captain," Gloria said. Frank nodded. "Send the signal to all resistance cells on Earth. Operation Homecoming begins now." The fleet dropped out of jump space directly above Earth. The Xinthari orbital defenses, already weakened by years of guerrilla attacks, weren't prepared for such a large force appearing so suddenly. "The Fraxian and Navan ships are targeting their communication satellites," Gloria reported. "Earth-based resistance teams are hitting ground control centers." Frank watched the tactical display as the carefully planned attack unfolded. "Launch our dropships. Get our ground forces to the main objectives." Across Earth, resistance fighters emerged from hiding. In what had once been London, John Miller led a team toward the Xinthari Power Distribution Center. "Remember," he told his fighters, "plant the disruptors on the main conduits. Once their power is down, they can't coordinate their defense." Xinthari guards fired at them, their crystal weapons sending blue energy bolts through the air. John's team used the urban rubble as cover, moving in the unpredictable patterns they had practiced. One of the younger fighters was hit and fell. "Kelly's down," someone shouted. John rushed to her side. The wound was bad. "Keep going," Kelly said through gritted teeth. "Finish the mission." John nodded grimly. "We'll be back for you." "That's a promise." The team pushed forward. When they reached the power center, they worked quickly to place their devices. As they activated, the lights across the city flickered and died. In Washington, D.C., Lisa Wright led a daring mission into the heart of the Xinthari command structure. Her small team included her Fraxian ally and 3 human resistance fighters. "The main control room is just ahead," she whispered. "Their security systems are down thanks to John's team in London." The Fraxian checked a small device, but their guards are still there. 6 of them. Lisa pulled out what looked like a simple metal ball. Another of John's inventions. "They won't be a problem." She rolled the device into the control room. It emitted a high-pitched sound that made the crystal-based Xinthari double over in pain. The humans, unaffected, rushed in and subdued the guards. "The command console is mine," Lisa said, sitting down at the alien controls. Years of working as a translator gave her enough knowledge to use their systems. "I'm locking down their weapon platforms worldwide." In Wyoming, Alan Porter led the largest ground force in the final push toward the Xinthari's western headquarters in what had once been Denver. "Their reinforcements can't get through from the east," Diane reported. "Susan's team has blocked the mountain passes." Alan nodded. "Then we push forward. No stopping until we reach the command center." The battle was hard. The Xinthari fought desperately now, knowing they were losing control. Many humans fell, but more took their places, ordinary people fighting with extraordinary courage. By sunset, Alan's forces had reached the outer defenses of the headquarters. They were exhausted but determined. "We camp here tonight," Alan told his officers. "Final assault at dawn." In orbit, the space battle reached its peak. The Steadfast took heavy damage from a Xinthari cruiser. "Port shields failing," an officer called out. Frank held onto his command chair as the ship shook. "Bring us around. Target their engine core with the ghost pulse." The Steadfast fired. The Xinthari ship's systems went haywire, its weapons firing at empty space. "All Earth resistance teams report successful capture of primary targets," Gloria announced. "The Xinthari are losing ground everywhere." Frank allowed himself a small smile. "Send the message to all ships and ground forces. Push forward. Earth will be free by tomorrow's sunset." Across the planet, humans fought with everything they had. They weren't soldiers. They were teachers, farmers, mechanics, and office workers who had learned to be warriors. They fought for their world, their freedom, and their future. 1 year after Earth's liberation, representatives from 27 species gathered in the rebuilt United Nations building. The Liberation Treaty would be signed today, officially ending the war and establishing new rules for the galaxy. Susan Bell stood at the window, Looking out at New York City, much of it was still being rebuilt, but the signs of new life were everywhere. "Ready for the ceremony?" Lisa Wright asked, joining her. Susan nodded. "I still can't believe we're here. That we won." The Zinthari couldn't believe it either. Lisa said with a small smile, "That's why they lost." In the main chamber, Captain Frank Daniels, now Admiral of Earth's Defense Fleet, spoke with representatives from the Fraxian and Navan worlds. His uniform was new, but he still carried the same determination in his eyes. "The joint patrol systems are working well," the Fraxian diplomat said. "No Zinthari ships have been detected near any of our worlds for 3 months." Frank nodded. "And the new council structure?" "Functioning as designed," said the Navan representative. "No single species can hold more than one leadership position. Power is balanced." Alan Porter entered the chamber, walking with a slight limp from a wound that never fully healed. He had refused desk duty and still led training for Earth's defense forces. "The delegates from the outer colonies have arrived," he reported to Frank. "Everyone's here now." John Miller was the last to arrive. His work rebuilding Earth's infrastructure and adapting alien technology for human use had kept him busy. "Sorry I'm late," he said, joining his friends. "We just got the power grid in Western Europe back to full capacity." The chamber fell silent as Commander Vex Lore, now representing what remained of Zinthari authority, entered with his small delegation. His once proud stance was gone. The Zinthari had lost not just Earth but their dominant position in the galaxy. The human president stepped to the central podium. "Today we signed the Liberation Treaty, ending 3 years of war and establishing a new order for all our worlds." One by one, representatives came forward to sign. When it was Vex Lore's turn, he paused. "The Zinthari wish to formally apologize for our actions," he said, his voice carrying through the quiet room. "We believed we understood humanity. We were wrong." After the ceremony, Susan, Lisa, Frank, Alan, and John gathered in a small room overlooking the city. "So what happens now?" John asked. Frank looked at a data pad showing the new defense fleet. "We stay ready. There are other threats out there. But we've made good allies too," Lisa added. "The Fraxians, the Navan, all the species who rose up with us." Ellen gazed out the window. "Hard to believe it's been 4 years since they first arrived. Since we were just people." "We're still people," Susan said quietly. "That's what the Zinthari never understood. Being human isn't about technology or power. It's about connection, adaptation, and determination." In the years that followed, humanity expanded throughout the stars. Not as conquerors, but as partners in the new galactic alliance. Earth's universities became centers for cross-species education. Human innovations combined with alien technology created new possibilities. The Zinthari, stripped of their empire, slowly rebuilt their society under the watchful eyes of the Alliance. Some Zinthari scholars began studying human history, trying to understand what they had missed. One Zinthari named Kreltor wrote a famous text that became required reading in schools across the galaxy, "The Error of Zinthar: How We Misjudged Humanity." Its final passage read, "We saw humans as simple beings with modest technology and assumed this made them weak. We failed to see that their strength never came from their tools but from within. We never realized that humans weren't just living on their planet, they were forged by it, by millennia of striving, fighting, falling, and rising again. We thought we were meeting the species. Instead, we awakened a force that had been preparing for us without knowing it for their entire history." The galaxy learned what the Zinthari discovered too late. Humanity was just people until war came. Then they became something the stars themselves would remember.